When you think of junk food, what comes to mind? Maybe it's grabbing a greasy cheeseburger at midnight, scarfing down a bag of Doritos on the couch, or hitting the drive-thru because cooking just feels like too much work. But here's the shocking truth. Our love affair with quick, cheap, and not always healthy food isn't modern at all. In fact, the Middle Ages were filled with their own version of fast food, and it was every bit as addictive, convenient, and sometimes just as dangerous. That's right. Long before Ronald McDonald, medieval Europe was running its own underground food scene, but instead of nuggets and milkshakes, you got meat pies stuffed with questionable pork, pretzels blessed by monks, and bread bowls that looked suspiciously like something you'd find at Panera today. And just like now, the goal was the same: keep people full, fast, and cheap. But if you think medieval junk food was quirky and harmless, think again. Behind the savoury pies and sweet breads were some shocking practices that could, and often did, make people very sick. This is the untold story of fast food in the Middle Ages. To understand why junk food became so important in the Middle Ages, we first need to picture what daily life was like. Imagine you're living in London in the 1300s. You and your family are crammed into a tenement. Basically, a medieval apartment complex built of wood and packed wall to wall with poor labourers. You work long hours, money is tight, and when you get home, the last thing you're going to do is whip up a home-cooked meal. Why? Because you literally can't. Cooking at home was a luxury. Most poor families didn't own a hearth, the medieval version of a stove. Even if you had one, fuel like wood or coal was so expensive that burning it every day would devour your budget. And let's not forget, houses were made of wood. Fires were common and deadly. A single spark could reduce an entire neighbourhood to ash. So what did people do? They went out. They relied on cook shops, the medieval answer to McDonald's. These were tiny establishments, often no more than smoky shacks that churned out hot food for anyone who could pay. Cook shops weren't just about convenience, they were a necessity. For the poor, they were the only way to get a hot meal without bankrupting themselves or burning down their homes, and they were everywhere. Tucked along busy streets sprouting up near marketplaces clustered around rivers and ports where trade and travellers kept business booming. But while these shops kept people alive, they also gained a reputation for being sketchy. Because unlike today, there were no food safety laws, no health inspectors, and no expiration dates. If it smelled edible, it was going on your plate. And what was on the menu? Picture a medieval street. It's loud, crowded, and muddy. Pigs and chickens wander freely between carts of vegetables and barrels of fish. The air is thick with the smoke of fires and the smell of roasting meat. Somewhere down the lane, a cook shop is doing business. Some were open around the clock, serving dock workers, night watchmen, and weary travellers. They offered hot stews, roasted poultry, pancakes, sweetbreads, and fish. Dishes that changed with the season, or whatever was cheapest at the market that day. Customers had options. You could eat right there, hunched over a wooden counter, or you could carry your meal home wrapped in a leaf, a scrap of parchment, or even tucked into a hollowed-out loaf of bread. Think of it as the medieval version of takeout containers. In places like Bristol, competition between cook shops was fierce. Entire rows of them popped up, so many that one street was literally nicknamed Cook's Row. To stand out, owners turned to marketing tricks. They would throw fresh meat onto their hearths just to release mouth-watering smells into the street. The idea was simple. Let the scent lure customers before the competition could grab them. The original version of the smell that sells. It's a tactic you still see today. Ever walked past a Cinnabon and felt like you had no choice but to buy one? Congratulations. You've fallen for the exact same strategy that medieval cooks used centuries ago. But of all the dishes cook shops sold, one stood above the rest as the reigning champion of medieval fast food. Bread wasn't just food. It was the backbone of medieval life. But bakers didn't stop at selling loaves. They turned bread into one of the most versatile culinary tools of the era. One of the most ingenious services offered was bake your own meat. If you had raw meat at home but no way to cook it, you could bring it to the baker. He'd wrap it in dough, pop it into his oven, and hand you back a perfectly cooked meal. It was essentially the medieval hot pocket, centuries before microwaves. The practice became so popular that by 1350, London had to regulate it, passing a law to stop bakers from overcharging for the service. The rule capped the cost at 1 penny, proving just how common it was for people to outsource their cooking. Then there were trenchers, bread bowls. These were thick slabs or hollowed-out loaves of bread used as edible plates. Cooks would ladle soup, stew, or gravy inside, and when you finished the meal, you ate the bowl, cheap, filling, and practical. Today, bread bowls feel like a modern invention. You see them at Panera or fairgrounds. But medieval Europeans were already living that carb-loaded dream 700 years ago. But bread wasn't done revolutionizing medieval snacks. Because one twisted creation became so iconic, it still survives today. Pretzels may seem like simple mull food today, but in the Middle Ages they carried far more weight. Made from just 3 ingredients, flour, water and salt, they were cheap, easy to produce, and approved by the Catholic Church as a fasting food. During Lent, when meat, dairy and eggs were off limits, pretzels became a spiritual substitute. But it wasn't just about hunger. The pretzel's shape, with its twisted arms, symbolized prayer. Monks gave them to children as rewards for learning prayers and handed them out to the poor as a sign of goodwill. Over time, pretzels came to represent luck, prosperity, and even salvation. So while we dip them in cheese today, medieval Europeans saw pretzels as a holy snack. But no fast food is complete without a drink, and the Middle Ages had a favourite beverage that makes soda look tame. Forget Coke or Pepsi. If you wanted a drink with your medieval fast food, you grabbed beer, ale, or wine. And here's the kicker. Everyone drank it. Men, women, and even children. Why? Because water wasn't safe. Rivers doubled as sewers, wells were often contaminated, and disease spread fast. Alcohol, even in its weakest form, was safer to drink. Workers drank it for calories and energy. Travellers drank it for hydration. Even religious fasting didn't forbid alcohol. During Lent, when people couldn't eat meat or dairy, they still guzzled ale without a second thought. In fact, some historians estimate that medieval Europeans drank more alcohol than most modern people, sometimes up to 3 litres a day. For them, it wasn't about partying, it was about survival. So if you picture a medieval labourer grabbing a hot meat pie, dipping bread into stew, munching on a pretzel, and washing it all down with ale, you're basically picturing the medieval equivalent of a fast food combo meal. So what does all this tell us? That fast food isn't a modern invention at all. It's a human tradition that stretches back centuries. In the Middle Ages, cook shops fed the poor and working class, offering hot meals around the clock. Meat pies became the ultimate street food, though sometimes deadly. Bakers invented bread bowls and hot pocket-like creations long before the microwave. Pretzels blended food and faith in a snack still popular today. And booze? It wasn't a luxury, it was a necessity, as common as soda in a modern combo. Fast food has always been about one thing: feeding people quickly, cheaply, and in ways that fit their daily lives. The only difference between us and our medieval ancestors is the menu, and the fact that today we don't have to worry about rancid pork hiding inside our burgers. So the next time you order takeout, remember, you're carrying on a 1,000-year-old tradition. And if that meat pie sounds a little too familiar, well, maybe we haven't changed as much as we think. If you enjoyed this video, then don't forget to pull out your bow and arrow and aim for the subscribe button. Yours truly, Nightfall.